In order to cook spaghetti aglio e olio, we need to have a knife and cutting board, a wooden spoon or silicone spatula, a pair of tongs, a ladle, and optionally, a lemon squeezer. As for pans, we will be using a wide bottom pan that can comfortably fit your spaghetti. Finally, we'll need a separate smaller pan which will be used to cook our sauce in. For our ingredients, we'll be using spaghetti, garlic, half a lime, a small bunch of parsley, red pepper flakes, or optionally some fresh red pepper, and extra virgin olive oil. Let's get cooking.
To start, I've filled my wider pan with water and set its temperature to high. I've also placed the smaller pan down and set its temperature to low. As the water heats up, I'll begin by finely mincing my garlic. I'm using around 4 cloves for this batch, but feel free to use more or less depending on how many servings you're making, as well as how much you like garlic. I'm crushing the garlic with the side of my knife to release more of its aromatic compounds and to make it more pungent. You can sprinkle a bit of kosher or rock salt onto the garlic to speed up this process, as it both helps in crushing the garlic, draws out more of its moisture, and seasons your final pasta. You can also chop the garlic into thin slices, but I prefer the garlic to be finely minced so that it fully melts into the sauce. Earlier, I separated the parsley stems from the leaves so that I could cut and cook them separately. Some recipes call for only leaves, but I find that if you cut the stems finely enough, they melt into the sauce and provide more flavor. Other recipes add the stems in their entirety and then remove them before transferring the pasta into the smaller pan, but feel free to do it however you'd like. Now I'm adding the extra virgin olive oil to the pan, just enough to coat the bottom in a thin layer. In a dish with as few ingredients as aglio e olio, it is important to get high quality and flavorful ingredients, which is why it's recommended to use extra virgin olive oil. I'll need to wait a bit for the water to boil and for the oil to heat up, so I'll just use some movie magic to skip ahead. Now something very important for this dish is to use bronze cut pasta. Here I am using the Garofalo brand from Costco, but brands like De Cecco, La Molisana, and Rumo are also great options. I will be both talking about this later, as well as including a link in the description to a video by Alex, or French Guy Cooking, that goes over this topic.
I will also be salting my pasta water a decent bit. Since we are going to be incorporating a generous amount of pasta water into the sauce, I prefer to not go too overboard with the salt, because as the sauce reduces, it will make the salt more concentrated in the dish. One of the benefits of cooking the pasta in a pan rather than a pot is that it uses less water, which makes the existing water extra starchy and allows all of the pasta to cook at the same time, rather than needing to wait for the pasta to soften before fully submerging. Now that the oil is heated, I'll be adding my garlic. We are cooking it over low, and this is because we do not want the garlic to burn. This is a garlic reliant dish. Burnt garlic will mess it all up. Further, the longer we are able to cook the garlic for, the more its flavors will be able to integrate into the oil. The sauce we're making is an emulsification between a garlicky aromatic oil and the starchy pasta water. I have some free time as my garlic cooks, so I will start chopping up my parsley leaves roughly. We do not want to cut the leaves too much, as it will seep a lot of its juices into the cutting board, and we don't want to miss out on that flavor. Just a quick chiffonade and a couple chops the other way is all you need. You can see that I'm constantly keeping an eye on the garlic. I'm gauging the color it's at and keeping it from burning. You can also see that I'm pressing my spoon into some of the garlic bits, as I'm trying to break down any larger chunks that I may have missed. If you went the garlic slices route or used the garlic press, you really don't need to do this. I skipped over a bit of the stirring to save some time, but I'm aiming for the garlic to be on the edge of golden. Cooking at a lower temperature gives me more time to react if the garlic begins to overcook. Once the garlic is at my desired color, I'll add my red pepper flakes. I like to do a couple shakes of it, maybe a teaspoon. If you like spice, feel free to add more. If you don't, add less, or even none at all.
We are going to let the red pepper flakes toast for just a little bit before adding our parsley stems. Depending on how you like it, the garlic should be either just reaching golden or just starting to brown. Either works. Make sure to give everything a nice stir to get everything combined. Once everything's had time to get to know each other, I'm going to add a ladle of pasta water into the oil. Please be careful, as the water can cause some oil splatter. I add the water slowly over low heat, which minimizes the chances of that happening. The water does two things here. It begins the process of emulsifying by adding starch to the oil, and it keeps the garlic and other ingredients from burning. This is the time where you can start cleaning up and checking your pasta's doneness. I'll be using this time to talk about dried pasta. The way dried pasta is generally made is by combining semolina flour with water. The mixture is then pushed through one of two types of extruder dies, Teflon or bronze. Teflon dies extrude pasta quickly and cheaply, and results in pasta with a smooth texture. Additionally, pastas extruded from a Teflon die tend to be dried at high temperatures for a short amount of time, which usually results in a yellowish brown color. And while that pasta has its place, you want to use bronze cut pasta for this recipe, as it has extra starch covering its surface, which helps the sauce cling to the noodle and make the cooking water more starchy. They also tend to be dried at lower temperatures over a longer period of time, which helps the pasta maintain its structure.
Putting the pasta in at this point is a little non-traditional. My pasta has been cooking for about 6 minutes, around half the amount of time the package's instructions say to cook it for. The reason I am doing this is because I am going to fully cook the pasta in the sauce. This is a method I learned from Stephen Cusato over at Not Another Cooking Show, which I will be linking below. Other recipes call for cooking the pasta until about 80 to 90% doneness, and then adding it to the sauce, but I find that this method allows me to control the sauce's consistency and the pasta's doneness more easily.
Here, I add just enough pasta water to almost fully submerge the pasta and crank up the pan's heat to high. Our main goals now are to let the pasta cook to our desired doneness and for the sauce to reduce into a creamy, almost thick consistency. While you have this free time, feel free to clean up a little bit or, just maybe, do a little pasta dance. This part is mainly just me stirring the pasta, so I'll be using this time to talk a little bit about the recipe and other things you can add on. This dish, spaghetti aglio e olio, translates to spaghetti with garlic and oil. It's also known as spaghetti alla mezzanotte, which means midnight spaghetti. It's essentially made of a series of pantry staples, which makes it especially easy to rely on in case you don't have access to other ingredients or all the markets are closed, like at midnight. Some other common additions to this dish are black pepper, anchovies in the initial sautéing phase, breadcrumbs sprinkled on at the end, or even grated cheese like Pecorino Romano or Parmigiano Reggiano. The lime that I used is also untraditional, but in my opinion elevates the dish to a whole new level. Spaghetti is the most commonly used pasta shape for the dish, too, but realistically you can also use bucatini, linguine, or even penne for the dish, and it would be great. Now, back to the cooking. As the sauce continues to reduce, I begin stirring the pasta around to keep the noodles from clumping. I also drag the pasta to one side to see how the sauce is coming along, and depending on how things look, I'll add a little more oil or pasta water. I'm adding a little more oil here because I noticed the pasta is looking a little more watery than I'd like it to at this stage. According to Luciano Monasilio, an Italian chef who I'll be linking below, you generally need 2 parts water to 1 part oil to properly make the aglio e olio sauce come together. In my experience, what he is saying is right. At the same time though, I found that I tend to use a bit more pasta water than what he calls for. I'm adding the parsley leaves near the end, as it doesn't take much time at all for the leaves to wilt, and that's what's going to give the pasta its signature speckled herby appearance. Further, I add a bit more pasta water to account for the addition of the leaves. You can also see that I've begun stirring the noodles and moving the pan around aggressively. This technique is called mantecatura, which in Italian cuisine refers to creating an emulsion or cream by aggressively stirring and agitating the ingredients in the pan or pot. This technique is most famously used when making risotto, and is similar in concept to how mayo is made by aggressively stirring oil into egg yolks. Tossing the pasta here isn't necessary, but it is highly recommended. You'll really get a feel for the thickness of the sauce, and can figure out if you need to thicken it by cooking it more, or lighten it up with some pasta water. Depending on the slope of the side of your pan, you can toss your pasta by simply moving the pan back and forth aggressively. At the end, I'm also adding the juice of half a lime and doing a final stir over heat. As you agitate the pasta near the end, you should hear a distinctly different sound coming from the ingredients. It sounds almost thick and gloopy as you toss it. As far as the creaminess of the sauce goes, you can tell the sauce is cooked properly when you can visibly see the sauce cling to the pasta in the pan when you slide the pasta over to one side. Now as for plating, you can do it however you'd like, but I like to grab some noodles with a tong, put them into a ladle, and then twist the tong so that a little nest of pasta forms in the ladle. Then, transfer it over to a plate or a bowl, and you're done. Feel free to season with extra red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, the aforementioned breadcrumbs or cheese, and dig in. 7th time recording this, or 7th time cooking this pasta this week, just to get all the clips for this. I just wanted to say thank you all for accompanying me on my first YouTube video. Just want to give it a quick taste test. So this is actually not the pasta that I cooked in the video, but it's about the same because I'm pretty good at cooking consistently. It's creamy, herbaceous, lemony, limey, a little bit peppery because of the red pepper flakes. Something really great about this dish is that you can really taste all the individual ingredients and how they come together. It's really, really special. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. If you don't want to, I'll be in your walls tonight.